Coming up here on the Raiders Report, my Raiders 10-step plan for a perfect offseason with Antonio Pierce as head coach. My dream would be able to sit down with AP, to sit down with Mark Davis, to sit down with all the decision makers of the Las Vegas and Raiders and say, you know what, Mitch, we've watched your YouTube show. You've done a good job. Now help us put together the perfect offseason. Here's one of my goals, though, for this upcoming week. By the end of the day, we all just want to just win, baby, right? Like, the reason why I think a lot of y'all tune into the show, don't get me wrong, we have a good time, we chop it up, we answer questions, we do a few beer bongs, but I think the reason why people watch this show is to learn one or two things, because I don't know about you, that's all I care about. I want to learn a few things every day, and I want to have a good time with the nation, right? So at the end of the day, we all just want to win, baby. I got a goal. I want to get to 161,000 subscribers by the time the Bills and the Chiefs game gets underway. So if you want to help me out with this, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications if you appreciate what Chugs and I bring on a daily basis, because it ain't slowing down even though it's the off season. Hit that subscribe button. Believe it or not, it's the biggest thank you can ever give me. All right, so let's go through this 10-step plan for my perfect offseason with Antonio Pierce. First thing you got to do, you got to keep Patrick Graham as your defensive coordinator. I have said it once, I have said it twice, I have said it 1,000 times. Having Antonio Pierce as your head coach, guess what? Patrick Graham as your DC, it's just as important. What the Las Vegas Raiders defense looked like this past season with both of these guys at the helm proved to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. You gave up 16.0 points per game, which was number one in the NFL from week 9 on. The Raiders had a Super Bowl caliber defense, and if you're an old school minded person, if you're somebody that still thinks, hey, defense wins championships, well, guess what? The Raiders have a defensive team right now that could win a championship if you follow this plan here. Let's go to number 2. You got to keep the defensive staff. It's not just about keeping Patrick Graham. You got to keep a guy like Rob Leonard. You got to keep a guy like Jason Simmons. I want to keep together this entire staff. Like, if Max Crosby and Devontae Adams are going to scream, hey, let's keep AP. If you're going to keep AP, well, guess what? You got to keep that entire group together, because from top to bottom, that staff on the defensive side of the football proved to me that you need to get those guys back. And if you're able to keep some of those guys back, then some of the players that are on this team want to stick around. You can go out and find some new faces. Let's keep the defensive side of the football all together. Number 3, whoever you decide to hire as your offensive coordinator to, give the keys to him. AP, worry about being a head coach. AP, worry about helping out Patrick Graham with the defensive side of the football, but make sure that the OC that you bring in has the ability, has the capability to run the entire offense. Like, you're going to let them do their thing. They're going to call plays. They're the man in charge. That's what you need to be able to do. And to me, there are 4 candidates right now as it stands that I think would be good OC hires for the Raiders with Antonio Pierce. Kliff Kingsbury, the quarterback coach for USC. Maybe go out and you get a guy like Caleb Williams. Klint Kubiak, pass game coordinator from San Francisco. Got a lot of good coaching ties. Got a nice little family tree there. I think Jaden Daniels would be an interesting option for him. Zach Robinson, the pass game coordinator. The more and more coaches that you see come from the Sean McVay tree, guess what? They prove to be pretty damn good coaches, so let's get him as our pass game coordinator. And then Shane Waldron, the OC for Seattle. They're going to bring in a new head coach. I don't think they're going to end up keeping Shane. He's also somebody that's been with the Raiders organization, has ties to Mark Davis. I believe that these are your 4 candidates to be the best OC with Antonio Pierce. That's the important thing with Antonio Pierce. Number 4 here, trade up for a quarterback plan. Like, to me, you got to make a plan right now. You put that plan out there on the table and say, hey, I'm either going to trade up for Drake May. Hey, I'm either going to trade up for Jaden Daniels. Hey, I'm either going to trade up for Caleb Williams. And you put that plan out on the table. What does that plan probably mean? It probably means if you want to go up to number 1, you're going to give up your 3 picks this year, your 3 picks next year, and maybe a starting caliber player. If you want to go up for pick number 2, well, then guess what? You got to be willing to give up 3 picks this year, let's say 2 picks next year. You want to go up and get Jaden Daniels? Well, hey, you have to already put in plan the amount of money, the amount of draft picks that you're going to allocate to that quarterback. But if it was up to me, the Raiders would trade up for one of these 3 players. So what does that also mean? No Justin Fields, no Russell Wilson. I'm building my team with a young quarterback that I can get in the draft. So my question here to all of y'all is this, and this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. Who do you want to be the Raiders quarterback next season? Do you want it to be Caleb, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Aiden O'Connell. Who do you want it to be? You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down and let me know. Let's go to number 5 here. You got to cut the fat. Get rid of not the fat people. Just, you got to cut the fat a little bit. Chugs and I were joking about this earlier before the show, and it kind of just popped in my head. If you know the movie, if you know the reference, tell me. But to me, when I say cut the fat, I mean you got to move on from players that are just clear, obvious dudes that you're moving on from to save a little bit of money. And to me, here are the 6 players that I am going to scream from my rooftop. You got to move on from them. Brian Hoyer, hasta la vista. Brenton Brown, peace out. Brandon Faison, thanks for the $3 million. Jacob Bobenmoyer. Honestly, I'd like to bring back Trent Sieg. Jimmy Garoppolo, post-June 1st, you save $13 million. Hunter Renfrow, post-June 1st. If you cut all of these players this offseason, the Raiders add an extra $30 million to their salary cap. Right now, as it stands, the Raiders have about 50.7 overall in salary cap, and because Renfrow and Jimmy Garoppolo are post-June 1st, you can spend a little bit more money now, then don't have to worry about paying your draft capital, your picks, because you're going to be able to pay them after June 1st because you're going to get an extra $30 million to play around with. Speaking of play around, it's probably not where you thought I was going to go here, right? Shout out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. And anytime you want to play around with our sponsor, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. There's a reason why we talk about them all the time. They're the #1 daily fantasy sports app out there, and I want the nation to try them. We don't just put sponsors on this show just for the hell of it. We put sponsors on this show to actually help you guys out, whether it's to clean up your downstairs or whether it's to have a good time for 3 hours out of the day. If you're an NBA fan, if you're somebody who misses watching the Raiders, well, guess what? You can put down 10, you can put down 20, put down $100. I don't care what it is. And with an opportunity to win up to 25 times your money, do it for a playoff game this weekend. Pick one playoff game. Do it. Or pick an entire day that you know you're not going to do anything. I've already told my fiance, Alex, Saturday, I want to watch football. So what am I going to do? I'm going to watch both games. I'm going to put down some money and have a chance to win some. Brock Purdy, give me the less. I think the Niners are going to be in control of that football game. C.J. Stroud, give me the more. He's going to be slinging it. George Kittle, give me the more on the receiving yards. If this ends up hitting, I make 50 extra bucks. Guess what? Alex and I can go out for a few drinks here in Dallas then. Bottom line is you're going to have a lot of fun. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. And one more time, in case maybe you weren't listening, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That link's going to be available to you all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. All right, let's go to number 6 here. Give extensions. And there are 5 players that if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to give a contract extension to, because if I'm keeping Antonio Pierce, I'm keeping Patrick Graham, I'm trying to keep the entire staff together. There are 5 players that I want to make sure that, guess what? I give them an extension now. That way it's cheaper because they're all going to be free agents next season. So Robert Spillane, Malcolm Kuntz, Tre'von Moehrig, Marcus Epps, Nate Hobbs are all going to be free agents in 2025. I do not want that to happen. I want to keep this core together. And if I'm a head coach, let's say I'm probably going to get a 3-year deal, right? AP's got a 3-year deal. Well, let's cement in Max Crosby the next 3 years. Let's cement in Robert Spillane, Malcolm Kuntz, Moehrig, Epps, Hobbs, the heart and soul of this Raiders defense. You cement all those players in, that lays a better blueprint, that gives a better understanding to your owner of what your plan is for this Raiders defense. Coming up here at number 7, I'm building the offensive line of free agency. Remember, my plan is to go up and trade for a quarterback in the draft. With that being said, I am not going to have nearly the amount of draft capital that I would like to be able to have to build my O-line. But if I'm going to invest all those draft picks in my guy at quarterback, you better make sure you have a hell of an offensive line. So what does that mean? You're keeping Colton Miller at left tackle. You might be able to flirt around with the idea of kicking Miller over to right tackle. I wouldn't do it if you're more confident in Thayer Munford to play left tackle. It's not what I would do, but if you got to get flexible, you got to keep Dylan Parham at left guard. I know some people want to kick him in at center. It could be an option. I would try to bring back Jermaine Illuminor, and I would bring back Andre James, considering the fact that both of those players played at a pretty high freaking level. Both players over a 70 PFF grade this past season. If you want to kick Parham in at center, then you're probably only going to be able to keep one, which is probably going to be Jermaine over somebody like Andre James. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to sign a right guard. To me, the top 4 right guards available in free agency: Kevin Dotson, Robert Hunt, Kevin Zeitler, Greg Van Roten. I would be on board with spending a little bit at the right guard position if, let's just say, Andre James and let's say Jermaine Illuminor did not come back. My only worry, this is me being real with you, because the Raiders do not have Carmen Brasillo, if you bring back that exact same offensive line, will it have the same production? But what is very, very important is you build that O-line and do it every way possible. Like, if you can't re-sign Andre James, if you can't bring back Jermaine Illuminor, well, guess what? You're going to have to spend a lot more money in free agency to build that O-line for your young rookie quarterback. Before I go into plan 8, 9, and 10, I got to give a shout-out here to the Noti Gang. If you're like, Mitch, what the hell is the Noti Gang? These are the people that take pride in trying to be the very first people that click into my video, that comment into my video. How do you get a shout-out on the Raiders Report? Hit that subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Kind of looks just like this guy down here. Click that, turn on all, so that way every single time I drop a video, it's like somebody sending you a text message, right? Then you get the notification, and guess what? It's up. It's popping. Shout out to Eddie, Ross, CJ, Terry. I salute all of y'all. Let's go to number 8 here. You're signing a big-name defensive tackle. And there's a few reasons why I would do this. Number 1, I'm trying to build in the trenches. I'm trying to make sure that Malcolm Kuntz gets more one-on-ones, trying to make sure that Max Crosby gets one-on-ones. On top of that, I want to take a little bit of pressure off Tyree Wilson. I think Wilson's going to play a split, kind of what he did this at the end of the season, where he's going to play a little defensive tackle. He's going to be a 3-tech. He's also going to play edge. He's going to do all these things that he's supposed to do when you're drafted number 7 overall. But on top of that, if you add a big-name defensive tackle, you spend some money at the DT position. I get it. It's not going to be cheap. Here's the thing, though. That takes pressure off Tyree Wilson and making sure that Wilson turns out to be the player that he is, because if you add a Justin Matabuke, a Christian Wilkins, which these are my top 2 options for the Raiders based off of overall money, what you're going to have to spend. Chris Jones is the most talented player on screen, but this ranking's based on age and how much money I am willing to spend. If you're able to add a Leonard Williams, a DJ Reader, that takes pressure off Tyree Wilson, and then it allows Patrick Graham's defense to do what it does best. 4, get after them, drop your guys back, and it's a bend but don't break, and it hasn't broke all season long. Let's go to number 9 here. Don't re-sign Josh Jacobs. I know some of you are like, Mitch, are you kidding me? To me, though, I don't want to bring back Jacobs, not because I don't like Jacobs, but because I would rather invest that money that it's going to take to get Jacobs, and I would rather invest that money in giving contract extensions, building my offensive line, and signing a big-name defensive tackle. I don't know how much it's going to cost Josh, but let's say it costs $10 million per year. Okay, let's just say that's what it costs. I'd rather you invest that $10 million per year in all these 3 other things, going out, drafting a running back, like one of these top 10 players here, and I'm probably targeting somewhere in round 2, 3, 4. It's kind of like my hot spot, sweet spot for running backs in this year's class. You pair him with somebody like Zamir White. Zamir White, out of his final 4 games, had 2 games over 100 rushing yards. He's the first Raiders running back in this team's history to have 2 games over 400, have 2 games over 100 rushing yards in his first 4 starts. Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry. But, I know that was a brutal one, Chugs. Bottom line is, though, I like Jacobs, but you can't spend that money at the running back position based off of this plan that I have created, so that's why I'm going with where I'm going. So how about this? If the Raiders draft a running back, who should it be? Should it be a Blake Corum? Should it be a Donovan Edwards? Should it be a Jonathan Brooks? Should it be a Ray Davis? Should it be a Marshawn Lloyd? I mean, who are some of the running backs that you think, and a back that's, committed to the 2024 NFL Draft? Give me a name down below you think that would be a really nice pairing with Zamir White and the future Raiders quarterback. Then, coming in here at number 10 is this. If I know that I am willing to spend all my draft capital to go up and get my guy, I'm willing to give up 3 first-round picks this year, 3 first-round picks next year, if it means I can get a Drake May, a Caleb Williams, a Jaden Daniels at number 1 overall. I'm willing to do it, okay? So with that being said, you're not going to have as much draft capital, obviously, Mitch. But where the Raiders are at, this is not a team that's in a Super Bowl window, okay, right now, because we're not in the playoffs. And to me, teams that are where the Raiders are currently at, I'm going to go best player available. I'm not going to draft based on need, because when you base on need, you end up reaching, right? You reach for Alex Leatherwood. You reach on Damon Arnett. You reach on Cleveland Ferrell. You reach on Jonathan Abram. The list goes on and on and on with the Raiders in terms of reaching for players that you don't need to go out and get. I just want you to take the best player on the board. Take the best guy, build some depth, and build a hell of a roster around the franchise quarterback that you just traded up for. So one more time here is my perfect offseason with Antonio Pierce at head coach. You keep Patrick Graham as your defensive coordinator. You keep the entire staff together. Give whatever OC that you end up bringing in, give him the keys to the car. Let him come up with a plan to trade up for a quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft. Just make sure that he's getting Drake May, Caleb Williams, or Jaden Daniels. You got to cut your fat. Move on from Hunter Renfrow. Move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Those two players, if you designate post-June 1st, that saves $30 million alone. Then give extensions to some of those core guys on defense. Malcolm Kuntz, Nate Hobbs, Tre'von Moehrig, Marcus Epps, Robert Spillane. Build the O-line. You got to build it for your young rookie quarterback. Sign a big-name defensive tackle to help out Max Crosby, help out Malcolm, help out Tyree Wilson, take a little bit of pressure off him. Don't bring back Jacobs. Why? You're not going to have the money to give him. I want to allocate it in these three areas here, and then base your draft on best player available. Do not reach based on need. For those that do not know, we will be live for the AFC divisional round game here. Chiefs, Bills, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you pull up here to the Raiders Report. We're going to have one hell of a time, and hopefully you're ready to party with Chugs and I. And my, oh my, hopefully the Buffalo Bills can get a win over Kansas City. Because to me, the team that I'm rooting for in the AFC, it's the Bills. The second team, Houston. All I care about, as long as the Niners, as long as the Chiefs aren't in the Super Bowl.